So I actually just chose a snare, so we're going to focus on the snare today. We want to take what's existing and actually enhance it, but sometimes that's not always the case, and we get recordings that sound like this. So I'm going to preview a little bit of the drums so you can hear it. So as you can hear, the drums is sounding pretty weak. You can obviously, just by looking at it, the gain level isn't very as optimized as you would actually expect for a snare. So this is very common when you receive tracks, especially for drumming. You're not always going to get the best recorded sound level wise in terms of gain. You're not always going to have the luxury to be able to tell the drummer to redo it, to re-record the drum tracks. It's just sometimes it's not possible. And the thing is, what can you do to improve on something like this? So there are a few things you can actually do. We can easily do 3 simple things. We can gain stage, we can do some EQ and a little bit of compression. And honestly, this will make this thing sound a lot better than what it sounds like right now. So first things first, let's actually take a look at the gain. So we want the average gain level to be a little bit higher, so we can actually gain it a little bit more. Gain staging is pretty much just effectively altering the recording level of the audio track, not the volume fader, but the actual clip itself, the audio track clip itself. So we're going to highlight our audio track here. We're going to see magic happen and unfold in our eyes. So we're going to actually boost our gain here. And as you can see, the drum form is actually increasing a lot more. So let's actually try around +4 for now. And you can see right away right now is that the audio waveform is a lot bigger and it's more apparent to your eyes. Not only can you visually see that the gain has been improved significantly, but you can also hear it more noticeably with the gain. We can actually start to add some processing on this. All right, so I'm going to pull that up. We're going to actually play the audio. Now the next thing we want to do is shape the sound a bit more, and that's kind of where the EQ comes in. So when it comes to EQing, there's just a few things that come in mind. Number one, we need to get rid of some of that nasty kind of box-like sound, and at the same time, there's kind of this nasty ring to it. So those are the first thing we can actually do. The second thing we can do is focus on the good parts of the snare. So how do we make our snare sound a bit wider, a bit bigger, and at the same time we can hear more of that cracking sound with the stick contacting the snare. Any type of EQing you do, especially on an individual track, you should always apply some sort of mono track to it, so that way you can get a more accurate reading on it. Just because when you're in stereo, it's really hard to be able to pinpoint exactly what you should be hearing, just because it's more spread out, the signal. So you want to make sure you go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that just to make sure that we are focused in mono and we're just hearing everything as accurately as possible here. All right, now that we kind of have a kind of good shape on it, so I'm going to run over what I did with the EQ here so it makes a little bit more sense. So a high pass filter up to around 70. Honestly, anything under kind of around there generally is just useless space that we can just give off to other instruments that you may have in the mix. So generally you want to always filter a little bit more. Kind of around 60 to 70 is kind of all right. You can do a little bit more or less. Really just depends on the context. And most of the time, you don't need really any space. So pretty much the more space you can free up, always a better scenario. Next thing I did was just EQ some of that ringing frequencies kind of around the 230 hertz area. Obviously, it's really super ringy. We can't really 100% get rid of the ring, but we're at least able to alleviate and take out some of that ringiness. It really helps out clean it up just a little bit there more so. Next thing I did was kind of went for a area of around 500 hertz. So generally around 500 hertz is always a good area to boost around. So it gives a kind of overall bigger sound. Generally around 3 to 4K is a good area to look around in terms of getting that crack sound for the snare. If you're not able to notice the difference once I apply the once I apply the compression on, it's going to be even more obvious. Of the changes will be really, really obvious here. So next thing you can do to fix this is actually bring up your compressor. Bring out your compressor. If it has a snare setting, feel free to just loop around and see what sounds great. Obviously, I'm just going to be bouncing back and forth, and I'll be making some fine-tuned adjustments, and I'll run down what exactly I did at the end of it once I kind of have a good snare compression sound that I'm looking for. All right, so I hope you notice there's a significant difference now with the level of noticeability here. Sorry, don't make sense here, but actually it really helps bring out the snare a lot more apparent now, and it actually really helps make it sound a lot better here. So I'm actually going to finish off here really quickly here and kind of zoom past quickly here, and it'll all make sense in a sec here once I finish setting everything up here. All right, so that is pretty much it in terms of what you can do with your snare, just to give it a beefier, bulkier sound. So I'm gonna play the audio clip before of what we were dealt with, what was the snare sound initially, and then we'll have the final one, so you can reference back, have a reference from beginning to end. All right, so I hope that was enough for you to hear the noticeable difference. Sounds definitely more improved than the old version. So I hope this was enough for you to at least be able to improve your snare. And that's like a very simple thing you can do. So if you're interested in learning more on mixing and just want to get better at mixing and you don't know let's just say you don't even know where to start, or maybe you mixed for some time and you gave up, I do have a ebook at the very bottom of this video. You can check out in the description underneath. There will be a link to my ebook where essentially I break down 5 essential steps when it comes to mixing and tackling it from a newbie perspective to someone that's more intermediate and stuff like that. And I recommend that you check it out because it'll really help elevate your learning experience, and you'll get better at mixing. Trust me, if you read this book. So leave a like, comment, subscribe, check out the book in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video.